Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again, barefaced lies. Too often, I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. I'll say barefaced lies. Again.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think of what you want, where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think if you do it, I don't wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phony, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Hey Sean, you got a party? Got that little party going on there. Keep to the left, you can't think right, so everything you do goes wrong, yeah. Incompetence just leads to disaster. Corruption brings it on even faster. What you say?
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you would wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we'd ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phony, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you would wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we'd ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phony, barefaced lies.
Barefaced lies. Barefaced lies.
Comrades, you always told us you'd build us all a new Jerusalem, yeah. You talk the talk, but when you walk, you only leave a crooked line there. And you don't see the trouble that's brewing, if all you do is just what you're doing.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we'd ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phony, barefaced lies.
Is this where you wanna be? Debt and childhood poverty. Won't somebody set us free from this corrupt kleptocracy? Oh yeah.
Barefaced lies.
That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we'd ever wanna defend, yeah. Cause when the truth becomes so easy to disguise, you get shooting cold, overgrown, postal phony, barefaced. That's right, yeah, we got an agenda. And it's your money we're gonna spend, yeah. Think you wouldn't wonder where it's all gonna end, yeah. Think you think we'd ever wanna defend, yeah.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very good evening. Tuesday the 17th of June 2025. My name is Raja Amir. This is a Recusant 9 transmission. Let's get on with what we want to talk about today.
It's why I wanted to ask you about it, about what your sense is as the underlying reason why collectively as a society there was that sense of a head in the sand, perhaps a well-meaning but very misplaced political correctness, or what do you put your finger on why this went on for so long?
I would put my finger on a number of things already. When I was chief prosecutor, I uncovered the fact that good faith assumptions were being made about the reliability of young girls as victims, and that's why I changed all of the guidelines within the prosecution system, because I could see that mistakes were being made, assumptions were being made. I was very clear to my team at the time that ethnicity would not come in and affect the decisions that we made as independent prosecutors. But now, 15 years later, we've been able to do things like mandatory reporting, is something I called for in 2013. Fell on deaf ears under the last government. We're now putting that in place.
Okay.
But this inquiry, in direct answer to your question, must go where the evidence takes it, and I'll be absolutely clear about that. And if that's questions of ethnicity, that's questions of the role of public officials, if it's questions of assumptions that were made that shouldn't have been made, all of that needs to be uncovered. No stone will be left unturned here.
So must go where the evidence takes it. No stone will be left unturned here, including the role of public officials. You've heard it from the Prime Minister. He's tried to defend himself. There's a whole host of stories going around of Whitehall officials being protected, MPs being protected. It can't. It just simply can't. Politicians as well, completely. So politicians also need to be prosecuted. I name the politicians that I know of, but interestingly now so does Kemi Badenoch and others, and the one they've picked is Sean Nancy, I think he's called. He's the MP for Telford, former council leader for Telford. So they've gone for a backbencher. They've not gone for Jim McMahon because Jim McMahon is too close to power. So they've gone for him because Telford, he didn't exchange children for votes. None of those things took place. Whilst in Oldham it's far more sinister, and it involves a lot more. So the Conservatives are still playing games with this. Let me try and find you something else I want to share with you. He says,
think that all people of Pakistani origin are abusers, and some people think that none of them are. Thinking has got us nowhere. What Baroness Casey, what the ICSA recommendation was that we needed better ethnicity data. We still don't have it. What Baroness Casey has recommended, which we will undertake, is the mandatory recording of ethnicity of perpetrators of child sexual abuse. What she has looked at, admittedly, just in 3 police force areas in the review, found an overrepresentation of Asian or British Pakistani origin males. It doesn't matter how I feel about that. Those are the facts. And if we ignore that, how can we ever come up with solutions?
It feels like at the heart of this is misogyny.
Of course, they're all men, aren't they? That's the other characteristic that all of these abusers have.
And this belief that the girls were, the children, were worthless.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, I think that sometimes in the debate about the ethnicity, which, it has been, that's not new news. This has been written in many reviews over the years. It's just nothing has ever been done about it to improve the data. We will do that. But what often gets lost for me is actually the way we dismiss women's, and especially young girls' voices. Treat them as if they're criminals, treat them as if they're, sluts and hussies and they were asking for it. That existed for far too long. And one of the things that we will do off the back of this report, and we're trained to do anyway, is get rid of the convictions for anyone under 18 who was accused of being a prostitute.
So we have got the Minister for Safeguarding Girls now claiming this is about misogyny. The common denominator is that they were all men.
nationalities that are not Pakistani men in these gangs. But many of them are Afghanistani or Iranian or Iraqi, but they are still all Muslim. And it is an issue when we see increasing numbers of illegal immigration into the country, where many of those immigrants share the same belief systems and different ways of treating women. I am really, really grateful to Baroness Casey for gripping that nettle. Because if we don't, as a country, we are just abandoning more generations of children to the horrific, life-destroying crime that I have seen again and again.
Play that again, because I think you need to listen to it.
Nationalities that are not Pakistani men in these gangs. But many of them are Afghanistani or Iranian or Iraqi, but they are still all Muslim. And it is an issue when we see increasing numbers of illegal immigration into the country, where many of those immigrants share the same belief systems and different ways of treating women. I am really, really grateful to Baroness Casey for gripping that nettle. Because if we don't, as a country, we are just abandoning more generations of children to the horrific, life-destroying crime that I have seen again and again.
So that is Maggie Oliver finding a different common denominator, a series of different common denominators. She's looked at the ethnicity of the perpetrators as identified by Baroness Lewis Casey, Afghanis and so on, and she has come to drawn the conclusion that what is actually common isn't that they're male, it's that one, they're Muslim, and two, that many of them are illegal immigrants or newer immigrants, and they have a different way of treating women. I think she's pulled a punch there in terms of different way of treating women. What she means is they treat women as possessions, as sex slaves, as inferior. So you've now got that from Maggie Oliver is now saying that, and you can see, I think I want you to show just the image there. You can see how shocked the reporter is. So that's the renowned Maggie Oliver finally entering this space and swinging. And she's used Baroness Casey as the means of her being able to articulate that viewpoint. A common denominator of Muslims, so that means there's a way in which Islam looks at this, illegal immigrants, and that's about their attitudes of the people who are coming here, and different ways of treating women. Of course, no one has gone to the position that I've repeatedly referenced when we talked about the overrepresentation of Pakistani men and of Muslim men. I talk about religiously justified, not just racially motivated crimes, but religiously justified. So none of them have had the courage yet to none of the mainstream voices have had the courage to take it there. The closest is Maggie Oliver, and of course no one yet really has gone into the rape genocide culture that is endemic, interwoven into the history of the creation of Pakistan and the way in which the Pakistanis robustly expanded their domain and enforced their viewpoints on the people of Bangladesh in 1971. Rape genocide, of course, is a strategy of the Pakistani regime. So that's Maggie Oliver who had to share that, and I thought that was unprecedented, really. Sorry, this hasn't done what it should have done.
Specifically when it's around protected characteristics.
Well, and I know this is difficult, and I think it's really important to be precise about this. And I know that the data is imperfect. One of the conclusions of your report is that the data is imperfect and it needs to be much better. But at the centre of this, the politics of this, the political question, which is constantly prosecuted, we've even seen it be prosecuted this morning from Kemi Badenoch, is that there is a particular problem with Pakistani men and group-based child sexual exploitation.
Has Kemi Badenoch said that this morning?
Well, what I'm saying is that she has been out this morning holding a press conference saying that this has been ignored for political reasons for far too long, and that therefore this is a sort of, it's been part of a cover-up and so on. From what you can see, what does your report say empirically about how accurate that charge is, that there is a particular problem and that this problem is centred around Pakistani men?
So I would just urge enormous caution of the opposition leader making political football out of anything, which, sorry, that's quite a tough thing to say, but I just wish people wouldn't, because at the heart of it is the victims and then Pakistani heritage communities. The vast majority are law-abiding. So will you establish the facts? Yes, Prime Minister, I'll establish the facts. The facts are the preceding government did not do a good enough job to collect data to establish ethnicity. And then in recent times, people, the police, MPCC and others, every visit I went to, people would say the vast majority of people that commit child sexual exploitation in group-based are white. I would say, upon what basis have you made that? Slide 1, slide 2, and I was like, And then you realise they're making that finding on the basis of 34% of completion of the data. You can't make that. So people were leaning into a finding that they wanted, which is what I saw in Rotherham, and at one level Tipexing out Pakistani on a children's service file, which was probably done in a well-meaning way because they'll be worried about sort of racism that flows from that, is actually a gift to racists. I mean, all of this is a gift to the racists. If good people don't look at difficult issues, bad people will, and even worse people will then exploit them. So, that's my general view of difficult things that I've been asked to look at in life, and this is neither the other. So we established that. And then I thought to myself, or we thought to ourselves, let's go and look at some of the large police forces where they have been, there are sufficient numbers of child sexual exploitation cases of a group-based nature for us to look at, can they collect ethnicity or not? And yes, they can. So that made me even more cross with the central aspects of this, because if you've got two very large police forces and then Operation Stovewood in South Yorkshire able to collect that data, why can't I have that data? Why is a previous Home Secretary or a previous policing minister or the Minister for Equalities, dare I say it, why can't they look at that data and interrogate it if I just get on a train to West Yorkshire and find it?
But to be clear, does the data, such as we have, does it vindicate the idea that has been levelled for some years now, that there is a particular problem among Pakistani men or groups of Pakistani men with group-based child sexual exploitation?
There is enough in the audit of looking at these three areas and the disproportionality in these are fully accurate details to take you to a position of disproportionality. So let's do Greater Manchester for a minute, because I asked them to run two separate data sets for me. We've got live and historic child sexual exploitation, group-based, very accurate, multiple offenders, multiple victims. It is significantly disproportionately Asian and Pakistani heritage. I also asked them to run the data on all child abuse cases, live and historic, and it is proportionate to the population, i.e. it's largely white. So that tells you something, which I think is better to understand that than actually data that you can't have nationally.
The newsagents.
I've always maintained from the beginning, when I occupied this space, if good people don't do something, bad people will, and the worse will exploit it. It's one of my mantras really as to why I occupy this space, and I've always occupied spaces like this and refused to give up or give or condemn the working classes that I grew up alongside. And here you have Baroness Casey pretty much echoing that it's only a gift to the far right if we refuse or we look the other way. So the failing is on us, not the far right. And she's talking about disproportionality. That's the phrase she uses, but sort of overrepresented. So Pakistanis are overrepresented. They're still using the term Asian. I'm not very happy with. Someone should tell Ruben he's or she is here listening to a Muslim. So someone should maybe let them know that. I wouldn't want them to waste their time.
It is not racist to want to examine the ethnicity of offenders.
Of course not.
You say absolutely right.
Of course
Yeah,
not.
okay,
I didn't
okay.
think it was in forced marriage. I didn't think in moving forward on forced marriage. I didn't think it was racist in moving forward on female genital mutilation. I didn't think it was racist.
So sorry, when people say you and others in Labour, in the Labour Party, in opposition and in government, have stuck your head in the sand about this.
Well, I mean, that people can. There are undoubtedly people who have. I'm not going to, and Louise Casey finds that, and there is plenty of anecdote, for example, around Anne Cryer, a Labour MP who spoke up about this, being told to keep it quiet by people, you know, from within the Labour Party.
And Maggie Oliver herself, a whistleblower, says Labour and the Tories have both turned a blind eye.
Maggie Oliver is absolutely right. When Sarah Champion came out and spoke about it at the time, I completely and utterly supported her. So yeah, look, people have turned a blind eye. There's no I'm not denying that.
Including you?
Absolutely not me. I have never turned a blind eye. I never would shy away from calling a problem what it is.
South Africa's what, 75%?
So she's claiming, Jess Phillips, the Minister for Safeguarding Children, is saying she's never turned a blind eye. Absolutely not me. Never turned a blind eye. Of course, the claim by Jess Phillips of that she's never turned a blind eye is a complete lie, because she was the one who wrote to Oldham Council after it been sat on her desk for 3 months, denying a public inquiry, which kicked a lot of this off. And then she also wrote to the town refusing, or she was too busy to come and meet with survivors and victims. So I think Jess Phillips is neck deep in this. And if she's never turned a blind eye, I'm yet to find anywhere where she's spoken out about the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of children in Birmingham in terms of the Pakistani rape gangs. Just give me 1 second. This guy... going to send him on his way, I think. Or I know you're Muslim. Tell your viewers about Taqiyya, please. So Taqiyya is, I'm just going to ban him. What Taqiyya is this belief that somehow I am a spy and I'm here hiding and pretending I'm on your side when really I'm here to promote the caliphate. So that's what Taqiyya is. And he believes I'm some sort of double agent. I think they're in the wrong place, and I think by now it's very clear what I'm about. And if it isn't, I don't think it ever will be. And I think that, mate, I think she will break very, very soon. She should be sacked, by the way. She should be sacked. Colin, thank you so much for the super chat. And Vinny, I'm not sure where that's from, mate, but thank you for the tea, for that. And she's a liar, isn't she? She's definitely a liar. I think you've all picked up on that. And I think that's clear by now, isn't it? And yeah, you can, as I've always said, I'll leave it to you to decide and judge for yourself what I am and what I'm not. So it must go where the evidence leads us, wherever that is. And That's the Prime Minister, and he's doubled down on that from wherever he is in Canada. And that's because clearly there were moves made in the United Kingdom to try and have discussions around, well, let's exclude Whitehall from scrutiny, and let's exclude politicians from scrutiny. And it's too late for that. You know, the Pandora's box is open, and it's too late for that. There's no going back. Now, that's not to say they won't attempt a cover-up. And I spent all morning with a member of the rape gang inquiry team, Rupert Law's rape gang inquiry team, going through what I think should happen, shouldn't happen, and they've gone away and prepping some papers, and hopefully I'll be meeting with them next week. And I think the role of Rupert Law's rape gang inquiry team has now evolved beyond what it originally was. I think because this public inquiry has been, thank you so much, this public inquiry has been now announced, something else will happen. Now I'm very clear on my position now with this. If we look the other way, we can now shout and scream and play politics, which is actually what the Conservatives are doing. They released they had a press conference today, didn't they? Let me find that for you. Just give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find that for you. If I can find it, I'll play it for you. I'm of the opinion politicians will go to prison. You know, it's been my position from the outset, I think. This is the Conservatives' 5 tests for a grooming gang inquiry. Criminal investigations must run in parallel to the inquiry, which must look at the whole system, from Whitehall, the CPS and police to local authorities. Well, you can see straight away the omission of the term politicians. You'll have to ask the Conservatives why they've done that. I don't know. Foreign perpetrators should be deported immediately. That's not a test for a grooming gang inquiry. The inquiry is not to go and pass policy. I mean, this is just a joke by the Conservatives, I'm sorry. So first of all, criminal investigations must run in parallel to the inquiry, which must look at the whole system from Whitehall, the CPS and police to local authorities. You can clearly see the omission of the term politicians in that. That's not accidental. Secondly, foreign perpetrators should be deported immediately. That's not a test for a national inquiry. A national inquiry doesn't decide whether perpetrators are excluded, are deported or not. An inquiry should identify if foreign perpetrators are disproportionate. But it's not to say foreign perpetrators should be deported immediately. The civil service, Ian, I think is what is generic. You know, the term Whitehall would mean the civil service. The inquiry must be fully independent with statutory powers. Well, actually, it's already has statutory powers. An inquiry under the Inquiries Act, which is what's been announced, means it automatically has statutory powers, and the 2 specific statutory powers are the power to compel compel witness, and then the power to independently go after evidence. So it doesn't have to rely on freedom of information requests. It doesn't have to rely on the authorities who are being investigated to decide what can and can't be seen. So either the Conservative government don't know what a public inquiry is, or they're playing with you. The inquiry must be fully independent with statutory powers covering all relevant towns, and local councils cannot be trusted to investigate themselves. So straight away the sentence doesn't make sense. The inquiry must be fully independent with statutory powers covering all relevant towns. What constitutes a relevant town? And when you use the word town, what about cities? I know the rape gangs were prevalent in Manchester. I know they were prevalent in Leeds. These are big cities. London, indeed. Do remind me, I've got a piece to share with you at a later date on Sadiq Khan and London. I've pulled something together, and it needs to be that. A public inquiry is a national inquiry. It's the same thing. And it's a statutory inquiry. It's the same thing. Yes, indeed. How do you identify a relevant town? You can see they're playing games here, and I'm increasingly getting disheartened with Chris Philp and Kemi Badenoch. I think they're playing games. I don't say this lightly. I think they're playing games. And local councils cannot be trusted to investigate themselves. Well, if it's a statutory inquiry, a local council cannot investigate itself, because that's not how statutory inquiries work. The inquiries, indeed, Bristol. These are cities, you can see. Newcastle, Glasgow, Oxford, yeah. The inquiry must examine the role of ethnicity and religion in the cover-up. What does that mean? The role of ethnicity in terms of the survivors, and how, because they were white working class, religion, actually they've omitted class. Not at all surprising. I'm very clear, I've been very clear from the outset, that these girls were sacrificed at the altar of multiculturalism, because not just because they were white, it's because they were working class. And the failing on the state, particularly those frontline middle class operatives, the fake liberal metropolitan elite, was because these were not white girls, but because they were working class girls. In the hierarchy of prejudice, they held more contempt towards the working class than they did to Pakistanis and Islamists. Labour must publish a full terms of reference, clear timetable with milestones, and appoint a chair by the summer recess. This inquiry should report no later than June 2028. So it's 3 years. They're given a time limit of 3 years. These are not 5 tests. They owe it to the victims to get this right. These 5 tests are nonsense. It's complete nonsense. I'm sorry, and those of you who followed me here, you've seen me speak glowingly of specific conservatives like Lucy Allen from Telford, how brave she was, and how the police came to visit her and threatened her. Of Katie Lamb, how I know Robbie Moore. I speak well. I'm beyond the party politics of this. And Maggie Oliver's made specific reference to a new wave of immigrants and where they're coming from, and the disproportionality. Baroness Casey herself has made reference to the illegal immigrants and the correlation there. Where's that in there? You can see this is just. I'm sorry, Owen. I know you're agreeing with me. I'm putting this up. This is just, this is just nonsense. Chris Phelps says, yes, he did turn a blind eye, Jess Phillips, the evidence in writing. The government has formally rejected repeated requests for a Home Office-led inquiry into historic child abuse in Oldham after the town's council voted on the matter earlier this year. Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips has responded to 2 letters from the Oldham Council Executive, and the authority voted to write to the Home Secretary requesting a formal public inquiry into child sexual exploitation in the borough. So he's saying the Jess Phillips did turn a blind eye. Well, Chris, the Conservatives also turned a blind eye, but you did worse. And it's a story you need to hear. When I first raised this issue, the first people that came to my aid in Oldham, political, was through a man called Lewis Quigg. I hadn't met him at that time, and I wouldn't go on to meet him for another 18 months or so, I think it was, before I finally met him. And he instigated the Conservatives in Oldham raising this with the Labour Party high command. Remember, the Conservative Party was in government at the time. And when vote after vote was, motion after motion was voted down, wanting to call in the government, the Conservatives, the local Conservatives, bypassed the council and wrote to the government, "Our children are being gang raped. There's a cover up here, please help." The Conservatives wrote back essentially saying, "You've used the wrong entrance. You've come in through the tradesman's door. We can't do anything if you come in through the back door. You've got to come in through the front door via a letter directly to us from the council itself." So put yourself in my position. Conservative councillors, and I'm historically of the Labour Party. At the time, I was a member of the Labour Party. They kicked me out. For those of you who are unaware, I was a member of the Labour Party. They kicked me out because I spoke out about this. So the Conservative councillors bravely raised this matter. Go to the government, a Conservative government, and the Conservative government says, "Yeah, it doesn't matter that children are being gang raped. You've not filled in the right form in the right way." And this is just a revision of history, Sheila. Oldham did not welcome a local inquiry. We forced Oldham into an inquiry and it nearly killed me. 6 years it took us, the best part of 6 years it took us, after the government refused, this is a Conservative government, refused to intervene because the request of the gang rape of children hadn't come from the council properly. And that's when we started removing council leader after council leader at the ballot box and reducing their numbers, and in some cases replacing them with independents, in other cases replacing them with Conservatives. And members of my team, after we removed Sean Fielding and replaced him with an independent, the next one we needed to remove was Arood Shah, who was in Chadderton South at the time. We campaigned against her on behalf of Robert Barnes, who was the local Conservative candidate. And we went and mobilised, I crowdfunded leaflets that brought to public attention what was taking place, including the gangster affiliations of the leader of the council. We distributed these leaflets and we supported the Conservative candidate. We did everything lawfully, legally. Arood Shah and her mates accused of us racists. Had me arrested, all of that took place. By the by, we continued to campaign, and when Robert Barnes got elected and we beat Arood Shah and knocked her out, what happened was the Labour Party, Jim McMahon, Debbie Abrahams, amongst others, complained that the campaign to remove Arood Shah was racist. And they complained. And the Conservatives investigated the likes of Lewis Quigg. They investigated Conservative members and Conservative politicians, councillors, as far-right racists because they supported us in campaigning on this issue. That is matter of public record. To this day, neither Chris Philp nor Kemi Badenoch have come to Oldham to meet with their own Conservative councillors. You explain that to me. You explain that to me. Let me find the full interview if he's put it up. Here you go. I want to play this.
Your lives have been ruined by the appalling. Just firstly, Marlon, Fiona, Teresa and Lucia, just to echo what Kemi said, thank you for your courage in fighting for the truth to come out. I know it's taken years and years. I know your lives have been ruined by the appalling abuse that happened. So just thank you for having the fortitude and the bravery to speak out on behalf of hundreds, and I think we think in fact thousands of young girls and boys as well who were abused. So thank you for what you've done by bringing this to public attention in the way you have. One of the things that struck me about this scandal isn't just that it happened in the first place, that the abuse occurred, and it's not just that the authorities were negligent and didn't investigate properly, it's that they deliberately and intentionally covered up these crimes. And I think actually Teresa touched on this when you said the police officers actually told you to stop complaining, they told you to leave it alone, and they said your son would suffer consequences unless you just stayed quiet. And yeah, exactly. And I've heard that so many times. I've heard about parents getting arrested for complaining, a case of a senior police officer in a northern city, a superintendent who ordered a retired officer who was working for a charity at the time to stop investigating because he was worried about so-called community tensions. So they deliberately covered this up. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't just negligence, it was deliberate. So the first thing I think this inquiry must do is make sure the people who are responsible for covering this up, police officers, local council leaders and councillors, social services, even the Crown Prosecution Service in some cases, are held responsible. There's a criminal offence called misconduct in public office. In my view, many of these people that covered this up are guilty of that offence. They need to be prosecuted and frankly sent to prison. And that needs to happen, in my view, alongside the inquiry. It can't wait until afterwards. And of course, at the same time, the many perpetrators, as Fiona said, who have escaped justice, need to be sent to prison and prosecuted as well. So I think that's the first thing, prosecuting those that covered this up for misconduct in public office. I think secondly, we need to make sure this inquiry covers all 50 towns affected, not just some of them, but all of them. We know some towns like Bradford have refused to cooperate with any inquiry at all, even to this day, so all those places must be covered. All of the local inquiries must have statutory powers to compel the production of evidence, so the cover-up can't continue. This must be done in a timely way, so 2 years is as long as it should take. We can't have this dragging on for years and years. The survivors and their families have been suffering for long enough. And then critically, to Marlon's point, this needs to be done in a way that is genuinely independent. Councils like Bradford are still refusing to look at this. We can't trust those councils who have been covering this up actively for so many years to investigate themselves. It has to be independently led. They can't investigate themselves. The inquiry has to look at the role of ethnicity in the cover-up. Casey found that. And then finally, this needs to start soon. We need to see the terms of reference and a chair appointed by the summer recess, which is towards the end of July, about 4 or 5 weeks' time. And we need, as both Fiona and Lucia have said, we need survivors to be at the heart of this. They need to be consulted the whole time about how this inquiry is conducted and kept regularly updated. This has to be really driven by the survivors, not just imposed by central government. And those are the tests we're going to be holding the government to account for to make sure they actually do these things. And I think listening to what I've heard said this morning, I think we're probably all on the same page when it comes to those principles.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Chris.
So I've just got a hold of a copy of
Sorry. So on the end of that room, a lot of the panels they were sat with were from Oldham. On the end of that was a former councillor called Lucia Ray. Lucia Ray is neck deep in the cover-up herself. She was part of the Failsworth Independent FIP, they're called up here, who were complicit of working with Arood Shah, still remain complicit of working with Arood Shah and her partners in the cover-up. She lost her seat and now she's reinvented herself as some sort of survivor's advocate. She's neck deep in this. And she's sat alongside a woman called Teresa, whose son, I think, was a victim, not a victim of the rape gangs. So what you've got is people that they're working with. One's a former politician, another one whose son was, committed suicide. I think later on, I'm not sure why she attributes to this. I don't doubt her for that 1 minute. But I've stopped engaging with Teresa after supporting her because she has been communicating with Irishimi, who is the Pakistani heroin dealing sidekick of Arood Shah, the council leader. So you can see what's going on there with the Conservatives. They've started to align themselves with individuals who either have a vested interest or aren't really, I'm very clear. The grooming gangs are a very specific operation, and so many people have fallen out with me because they've come to me and said, I need you to look at this, I need you to look at that, or don't you care? And I'm like, no, it's not I don't care. I'm very focused on this specific crime. And you can see now the Conservatives are completely compromised, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they've attempted to write me out of history, which is fine. And it's also why they are avoiding looking at some of the underlying issues of what's taking place, which isn't just talking about racial drivers or ethnic drivers or deportations or any of that nonsense. It's actually looking at the centre of this issue of what makes the grooming gangs unique isn't just the racial element. There's a class element, and they've consistently ignored that, and they continue to ignore that. And also that the political exchange that took place. This wasn't about just maintaining community relations. This is the trading of children for votes, and how postal votes have corrupted the political infrastructure of towns and cities, including Bradford. So now they are just playing at this. You can see that now they are just playing at this. I just marked. Thank you for that, mate. Very much appreciated. Lloyd, my research and evidence is what got us here. And the research and evidence I've been sharing in the public domain now for 6 years, relentlessly. If you think I've got some secret stash of evidence somewhere that I'm been holding back for a public inquiry, no, the evidence I've got I used to help force the public inquiry. And the campaigning has done that. Excuse me, let me just turn my phone on mute. So that's where I'm up to. Indeed, a young Tory councillor did complain to Tory headquarters and reported Gary Tarbuck as some form of far-right activist. He was standing for the Conservatives at the time in Royton South. And I'm afraid the boats, it's not going to stop. The boats are still arriving. That's not really anything I can say or do about a public inquiry into the cover-up of the gang rape of children. I agree. I think Bradford will be the epicentre. I think Bradford, Birmingham, those sorts of places will be the epicentre. And Bradford does need to be accountable. 100% agree. I don't know how a white man is supposed to do it, because I, as a brown-faced Muslim, have been arrested as a racist and far-right activist. He talks about the 50 towns and cities. Ask him to list the 50 towns and cities. I've not been able to get a list of anyone for these 50 towns and cities. Now, I've got a list, but I've not been able to get a definitive list on what made them that list. Again, this is just, it goes back to Charlie Peters saying, you know, they've uncovered 50 towns and cities. Well, come on, mate. I don't mean it disrespectfully. He's a journalist. I want someone from a Home Office to do an analysis to say the 50 towns and cities. Or use the data. So that's, they're playing games. They're playing games with you. And I don't want to say that to, if any of you are a Conservative, but the Conservatives are now playing games. And I think Louise Casey picks up on that. That's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think, Lisa. I come from a very different space. I come from a very different campaigning space. And the evidence, indeed, and the way in which I campaign is what's kept me out of prison, Gary. The evidence, if you follow the work in the lead up to forcing this inquiry, we talked about how the rape gangs were now also targeting Muslim girls, that they were not Sharia compliant. Dominic Cummings came out last week, didn't he? And I shared that, and he came out and evidenced it. You know, he testified himself that Rotherham Council had gone to the government wanting to cover it up, and there were people within government that wanted it covered up. I don't think they operated across county lines. Andy Burnham, in my opinion, should be in prison. I meet with, they didn't even list the 5 original ones highlighted, it was just all of them they listed, so they made it up. So I am very clear on this. The National Inquiry, we fought so hard to get this. The Tories only jumped on the bandwagon. We fought so hard, you, me, all of us fought so hard. The survivors fought so hard to get this. And there is now a different layer of games being played. From opportunists like Lucia Ray, to those who are grieving and want justice, who've manoeuvred to make this somehow a grooming gang issue, what happened to them or their children when it wasn't. The grooming gangs are very distinct, and this lot can't even work out and sit with a group of people whose children are victims of grooming gangs. They've got Marlon West, who's the father of a victim, 100%, Scarlett, so that's fine. And even though I'm not on the same page as him, I have nothing but empathy for what he's endured through his daughter, what he's tried to do, and I understand why he's in that space. Casey can't lead an inquiry, it's got to be a judge. So what tends to happen is these national inquiries, public inquiries, are led by a judge, and they put a panel together of experts. So there's an inquiry team. What would happen is the judge would set that team. Would you find value in that? Would you find value in me going through what that looks like? I've not seen Andy Burnham make any comment. If you have, let me know. Yes, Lucia Ray's an ice cream van driver from Failsworth. I'm very clear on my viewpoint of her. She's absolute vermin. Last I heard, she was trying to get herself selected as the reform candidate for Failsworth East. She's just a political opportunist who worked with Brian Hoban, who is now a key partner, and Hindle, both of whom are key partners of Arud Shah, the Labour Party leader of my town, who is now saying she was always supportive of this. The facts speak differently. She voted it down time after time after time. So, let me do it like this. So what you have, usually, in terms of a national inquiry, is you set up a chair. So the person who leads it should be a judge, usually a judge. And the Home Secretary will appoint the judge. The inquiry has a name, and the name is important. The name, in my opinion, should be the Pakistani Rape Gang Inquiry, because the name sets the parameters. From that, you have the terms of reference. Ordinarily, the judge would be involved, or should be involved, in setting the terms of reference, and he'll do that, or she'll do that, either independently or in partnership with the Home Secretary, and they'd have a panel. So there'd be a team, and that team would be, in my opinion, a survivor representative, so someone with the lived experience, someone from the campaigning world or a policy world, public policy, child protection, and so on. You get it, yeah? So that is what they would ordinarily, you would ordinarily have. And if you've got that, what the inquiry team has got to do once it's got its terms of reference, which is what it investigates, how it investigates, how it reports back, and a time frame. Now we are in a position of a complete lack of trust. We are in a complete lack of trust with the government. They've been brought here kicking and screaming. And I would say the first test is the judge. I would appoint someone from The Hague. I would appoint a judge from The Hague, and The Hague is where war criminals are tried. And that straight away protects from that. The name will prove there's no hiding place. The Pakistani Rape Gang Inquiry. Or something similar. Because that's what we're saying, isn't it? There's some specific element of this. They won't have me on the panel, Natalie. Natalia, sorry, they won't have me on the panel. I can't even get on the mainstream news channel. Then they'd have the panel, and that needs to be representative and politically not affiliated with the government. In the terms of reference, I forgot where it will investigate. And then in my opinion, the terms of reference need to be published in draft form, allow feedback before full terms of reference. I would personally, if I was involved, and time is of the essence, and it's running in parallel with police investigations, we know, and everyone's mentioned it, there's 50 towns and cities. We know it's more. And we know they've already got the anomaly of Oldham with some sort of quasi-investigation. The Oldham inquiry needs to be scrapped, because it's already polluted. Brian Hobin's interfered with it. Arud Shah's interfered with it. We know Irish Imi is linked to some of the survivor groups and has infiltrated that. And we also know that some of the organisations, or one of the organisations the council is engaging with survivors through, is leaking information. So the Oldham inquiry needs to be scrapped. And the terms of reference need to be wherever it takes us, wherever the evidence takes us. And that includes local government. The other side includes national government, Whitehall, the Home Office. Baroness Casey picked on the Home Office report from 2022 that Priti Patel released while she was Home Secretary as a Conservative as a work of fiction. You know, the one that says white men are more more likely to commit sexual offences this way. There's no racial correlation. Well, that was a work of fiction. Someone in Whitehall wrote that. Someone in Whitehall signed that off. So there's got to be some form of national government, local government, both have got to be. And then when you talk about local government, that's the towns and cities. You've then got the police, you've got the CPS, and of course you've got politicians. Because they are protecting him. They are protecting him. You've got to understand what's taking place. Social services would be part of what's been investigated at local government level. So council, social services, schools, all of that would come here in terms of social services. They're an element of a local authority. That's a fair question, Margaret. Did I ever think we'd get this far? No, I didn't. I fought and fought and fought. I didn't think we'd get this far, but we're here. We've got good people on our side. And do I think we'll get justice through the public inquiry? No. But I think it'll be another step towards justice. And what is justice? I think that's a question I ask of you. For me, justice is those who committed these crimes. We go after them, whoever's left. Those who covered up the crimes, we go after them. Those who failed the children, which is different to covering up the crimes, we go after them in a different way, I presume. And those who benefited, we go after them and knew are in positions of power. And the survivors have compensation and support for the rest of their lives. Do I think we'll achieve all of them? No. Do I think we will achieve some of them? Yes. We've already achieved some of them. We've already dragged out of them the racial and religious overrepresentation. Most of you haven't worked with Maggie Oliver or come across Maggie Oliver. We've had dealings with her in Oldham. They've not been the best of dealings. The council has used things Maggie Oliver has said to try and justify and protect their position in avoiding public inquiries. January the 2nd or January the 3rd, after Elon Musk got involved, Maggie Oliver issued a statement where she didn't believe in public inquiries. Now this same Maggie Oliver is now talking about Islam and illegal immigrants. She's found that confidence somewhere. People change, people grow. Who knows who else will come and fight alongside us? What do I think justice is? Will this public inquiry report before a general election? It should do. But our experience in Oldham is that Burnham delayed his inquiries until after the elections. We've got the Home Secretary yesterday confirm 1,800 cases have been reopened, and she believes it'll be over 1,000 in a couple of weeks. I'd take that to my grave as a win. 1,000 children now might get justice because I made this political. But to all of you, and the skepticism I understand, to all of you who say this will be a cover-up and we just passively accept it, I say, well, one, that's our failing, that's your failing for passively accepting it. But my second point is, what is the alternative? What is the alternative? Because I haven't got one. Because if we don't make it work through democracy, then where does it leave us? And I think that is where I am heading towards, Philip. I think the public, this national inquiry and its findings are a step towards that. And if I was a politician or belonged to a political party, not what the Conservatives are doing now, because that's disgraceful. But if I belonged to a political party that was genuinely engaged in this, then I would use it. And remember, political parties are the ones that pass laws. Those in power are the ones that pass laws. Just before I started this, a friend of mine contacted me distraught. Raja, they've just passed a law to kill babies. Apparently, and I don't know the ins and outs of this, but apparently a law's just been passed where abortions are allowed up to just before childbirth. We can pass laws once we're in power. Or a national party's in power. We can pass laws. Those laws can be something as simple as the banning of postal votes. Those laws can be. It's not public inquiry that passes a law. It's governments that pass laws, politicians that pass laws in Parliament. One of those laws can be the mandatory deportation of all foreign-born nationals who have been found guilty of committing any offence, not just grooming gangs, any offence. My own personal viewpoint, any foreign-born offender, any foreign national, would be automatically deported once they'd broken a law in this country. There's nothing stopping that law being introduced. There's nothing stopping the Conservatives, the opposition, to have a number of days where they can bring motions forward. There's nothing stopping the Conservatives bringing a vote, even whilst they're in opposition, for mandatory deportations of foreign-born criminals who've been convicted here. There's nothing stopping them doing that. They're playing with you. Now, I've been critical non-stop of the Labour Party throughout this, and I've been supportive where I can of all the opposition parties, but now it's increasingly clear to me the Conservatives are playing you. They're playing us. Yeah, well, they rip the passports up and throw them all away, don't they? I agree with you, Kim. But it's the uni party, isn't it? It's the uni party. Thank you. So, this is where we're up to. We know what the terrain looks like. We know who's with us. We know who's against us. We know who's on their own side. But for now, they can support us and we can support them. We know what the pieces of the board look like. First base now, we've secured the commitment for a national inquiry. It's took us 6 years. First base now isn't to cry and say it's going to be a cover-up anyway. First base now is to inform and shape what that national inquiry looks like, and it's not the nonsense that the Conservatives put forward. I spent the day with Rupert Lowe's team, like I said to you, and hopefully they'll be coming out with something over the next few days, and you'll see if it's night and day. And if you see it's night and day, it's because this guy in this, scruffy tracksuit top, who's looking tired. I'm looking at myself and I'm looking tired. But I've gone and helped. The first thing I did wasn't to go and shout and scream on some TV or get on some interview. The first thing I did after it came out yesterday was to go and spend some time with Rupert Lowe's team to make sure that we are ready to make sure that the inquiry that many of you supported, 20,000 people, £600,000 and more, that you've got, that it delivers for you. And first base is better than no base, agreed. They didn't think we'd hit. They thought we'd strike out. No, we're at first base. Let's shape it. Let's put the pressure on and let's remain focused. I'm not interested in the I did it, you did it, someone else did it, or what the Tories are doing. I'm not interested in any of that. We've got to be very, very specific, and the rape gang inquiry team will put a document out that's more concrete than the one they put out already. They will. Jenny. The citizen inquiry, there's no such thing. Not with statutory powers or any of that. You've got to work within the framework that exists. You can deport who you want. There's nothing stopping a party taking power and saying, okay, we're going to leave the Human Rights Act, we're going to leave the Equality and Human Rights Act, ECHR. Those choices are available to us with the right government. Now, I don't know who the right government is. Maybe the Conservatives will evolve because they're in a mess. I don't think it'd be Labour. No. No one's covered this. Thank you. We've covered this. We've been covering this for 5 years, 6 years. Natalia, I think you should know. I have got a very good idea of what needs to be done. I just need to stay in the space. And it's becoming an increasingly crowded space, isn't it? Because when I occupied this space, I was a lone voice in what I said and the way I said it. Now the mainstream parties, Conservatives, The Guardian, all of that, they've suddenly occupied this space and decided it was their idea all along. They know what they're doing and they were championing it and they know what the answers are. I'm saying no, they don't. They're manipulating you. And I'm here and I can inform and shape, and there's more of us now than there ever has been. What they're going to do, arrest me again? They can't arrest me again. But I need 10,000 people behind me. It's what I've said to all of you yesterday. I know the numbers we need for me to be able to do this. And if you think my style is too boring or this or that, I live this. I've lived this for the last 6 years. I've carried a heavy weight for the last 6 years. So what happens next is entirely up to you, and I'll give you an update on the figures of where we are, so you can see it yourself. And that's where we're up to. It's pitiful. 4,699. Now the numbers are growing, but you know, it's a trickle. So I reckon we've got about a month or so. I can work through the inquiry team a little bit, but I can't do everything I want to do through the inquiry team because it's got a very tight remit. And there are other people involved, rightfully so. I'm afraid Talk TV won't have me on. I spoke with Alex, what's her surname, who's on Talk TV, the journalist. I spoke with Alex earlier, and she did interview me, but not for Talk TV. She interviewed me for her own Substack channel that she's got, and she was very clear. She considers me very brave, but what I say takes it to a place that none of the mainstream media platforms are willing to take it. Yeah, sorry, Alex Phillips, thank you. So just before I came on here, I spent an hour with Alex Phillips, and then earlier before that I spent half an hour with Richie Allen, and before that I spent the full day with Rupert Lowe's team. I can do this, but I need your help to do this. And on that, what I'll say to all of you is, I think I'm on with Dan Wotton tomorrow at 5 o'clock. It's that, isn't it, Jenny? If someone else is doing this, then tell me, and I'll stop. I'll say I've took it as far as I can. and I'm no longer the best person to do this. That's the case, great, it's no problem. Tell me. But if you believe that you're going to be manipulated, exploited, and you need someone to navigate through this and pull it all together and then lobby the way I have, then I'm here. And I'm willing, I've given 6.5 years of my life. It's going to take another 4. Because it'll take us to the next general election, and then after, with whatever the new party is that's in government, we've got to inform and influence their manifestos to pick up on this, and then hold them to account once they get in power to deliver on this. That's the end game. That's the milestones for us. So there you go. So please, 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 please. Rupert Lowe, I think, promotes me. I think he does. I think Ben Habib's on his own journey, I think. In mine, people ask me, whose side are you on? Are you one or the other? I'm not on anyone's side. I'm on your side. I'm on our side. And I think if they had any sense, they'd all at some point work out their differences, because they need to be united to take on this uni-party and the machinery of the state. Because we're not just fighting a political party, we're fighting the machinery of the state. So, I think that's where I am. That's where I am. So I'll leave you to consider what I've said, to reflect to yourselves what you want, and support me if you can. Promote me, support me, and let's see if we can get those numbers up. But we've got a couple of weeks, and then the window closes, and then we're fighting against what they've already done. Please. And I take that to bed. I take that because I'm exhausted, Gary. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted, and part of me is a part of me knows that whatever we've done to get it here, and whatever effort it's taken, and whatever toll it's taken to get it to where it needs to be, will take 10 times more. And yes, I'm willing to put myself there to lead that, but I need you guys to do it. I've spoke to those guys. I have no issue with Tushi TV, but I think he's very focused on his Iran stuff. Thank you for becoming a member, Paul. I'm very, very grateful. Look forward to seeing how this plays out. I'll try and come back tomorrow if I can, and if not, it'll be sometime on Thursday daytime or Friday daytime. I'm running around the report, by the way, the 200-page report, for those who've asked me. There's so many holes in it, and there's the framework of a narrative that I find very uncomfortable, but it shouldn't surprise any of you, because Baroness Casey is of the establishment. I don't know what the terms of reference are. Now, if you're asking me, am I prepared to testify? I think that's very clear, isn't it? Of course I'm prepared to testify. But who do I testify to? What's the terms of reference? What's it investigating? Do you see? There's a reason why. Thank you. Thank you, Asif. Very much appreciated. It's going well, thank you. But please, redwallandtherabble.co.uk costs absolutely nothing. All of my work is shared for free. I leave it to people to decide whether they want to financially support me or not. A handful do, the majority don't. But we need numbers, and we need to get to 10,000. Ceasing.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.